So just for those people that aren't here, it's our session 2 of the Support Community Participation and Social Inclusion, or CHCDIS 003. We're starting the day with Seen in a Hat, as you can see from that photograph. So I've asked people to think about a scenario or a situation that takes them out of their perhaps comfort zone, where they might be working with someone with a disability as a support worker, and the person asks them to go to do X, Y, Z. So people are writing stuff down, and then we're going to give everyone a random scene, and then we'll take it from there. Very good artwork. So, hot air balloon, standing ovation. Any suggestions from the audience? Could it be joining the ukulele?
Yes.
Guitar? So learn to play the guitar?
Yeah, they want to learn how to play the guitar, but I put an X there because as a social worker, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So I'd have to refer them to, say, maybe even a instructor on how to use guitars or something. Or like a band group for disability people.
There could be, it might be someone in our community who specialises in teaching music, or specifically guitar.
Yep.
Anyone aware of such a person or group?
I know there is. I'm not aware of one up here, but I know down in Victoria there's a disability music school.
Yeah.
It's a music school for disabled people. So
There we go. So I'm sure there's something like that, but again, we have to just get on the internet or talk to our colleagues, our research, just to find out exactly what's out there.
Someone can get that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wanting to drink, wanting to go for a drink.
Yes.
I've certainly supported people to go to the pub in my working life, and included, Sunday morning go and play lawn bowls. I used to take maybe 4 or 5 guys, I think they're all guys, various ages, various disabilities, to play lawn bowls, and one of them in particular, his thing was to go and have a beer as well, so that was all fine.
An issue would be though that if you were a recovering alcoholic and they wanted to go to the pub, you'd be like,
that might be an issue.
Yeah.
So you might, and I guess as you as the worker, you need to sort of mention that if that's an issue. Say, I'm not okay with this, and maybe I can support someone else.
quite high.
Do you want to explain what's going on?
Well, the person wants to go swimming, but there's a high tide.
It's a high tide?
Yeah.
Is it at the ocean or the lake?
The ocean. That's supposed to be stairs.
There's stairs down to the ocean?
Yeah. And then that's the big wave.
Yeah. So if you're the worker, the challenge is that you don't want to go in the water and drown?
Yeah.
Or you don't want to drown the person?
Well,
Oh, that was my story, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's risky. The high tides are risky for like everyone, but then someone with a disability, it's even harder to get out on the tide because they're like one limb short. And they've got someone assisting them, and you both get
Oh, did you write this one?
No, I was just given.
No, this was Aisha's own one.
Oh, you wrote your own one? Yeah. So the idea was that risk of going swimming, and it was a bit
And
of
they also, well, I was thinking if they had a physical disability.
what sort of
A physical?
physical, yeah. And so they want to. Oh, it's a bit like our case study last week, was it? Milo wanted to get back into surfing, and he was a surfer prior to having an accident, and put him in a wheelchair. So that was 5 years ago, and then he wanted to get back into the surf, and we found Disabled Surfers Association as a support service, but there was that question about where was Milo at, and assessing his competency or confidence in the water and his strength at the moment, and that sort of thing. So I don't want to put myself in that risk by taking in necessarily on my own. So getting the supports to support that. I guess in Milo's case, that transition back into the ocean. Record that, shouldn't I? So I guess it was about someone wanting to have a sexual experience.
Yep.
And it may be that they are a bit older.
And preferably a safe one.
And preferably a safe one. So where might I go to support that?
Just give them condoms.
There's disability sex workers.
Yeah.
Specialise in.
Specialise, yes.
I know that.
And I guess do we just go on the internet to find that out? Or?
You probably would, yeah. Or maybe you could go to one of the sex clinics.
like family planning, might know.
Yeah, something like
And
that.
also so they can learn about sexual diseases as well, just in case
Definitely.
sex doesn't go.
Yeah, I guess we do have a duty of care, to explore it in a safe way,
Yeah.
not just maybe go on to, I don't know, Tinder or something.
Yeah.
I was going to say brothel.
Yeah, well, you could.
You'd have
Yeah.
to check though that they cater to people with disabilities.
Yeah, just to be certain.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just that there's some professional conversations in the first instance with some people who might have some good knowledge. So there could be family planning, they might know about that.
Yeah.
It could be ACON even, just in that they support people. I know it's GLBTQI plus specific organisation, but they could be worth a chat.
Yeah.
And I guess that's their space. And it's not to say that the person doesn't want to have a same-sex or
Yeah.
relationship either. So that could be, if that was the case, ACON. Yeah.
And you're like down in Melbourne, there's a company called Reds, which is RHEDS, and they support sex workers, and we've given them condoms and lubricant and workshops and stuff like that. So and I know that they promote disability sex work services. So you could go through something like that. So
Yeah. So definitely, there's probably a let's say sex workers that specialise and have some good practices around working with people with disability. I'm guessing. In a local area.
it's a real niche market.
A niche market. Yeah. So if that's what the person wants, if that's what they're saying,
Yeah.
But yeah, we just sort of to have a good conversation, an open conversation around whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening to that little bit of information that was presented in class through the charades or seat in a hat activity. The point of that was getting to prepare for the role play tasks and also the short answer tasks. So in terms of the role play, we're looking at working with a woman called Jordan who has a intellectual disability. So following the role play with Jordan, you'll complete some case notes and I'll have the pro form for that. And you'll also have to finish Jordan's individual plan. You are provided with a little bit of information about Jordan from the partially completed individualised plan. So we'll have a quick look at that in a second. But firstly, I'll just want to draw your attention to some of the main criteria in the marking guide. So if we look at the marking guide, there's some stuff from the first point there about using a person-centred and strengths-based approach, and that's something that comes up in the short answer questions as well. So the idea of strengths-based is working with the people's passions, interests and talents. So Jordan has an outline of those areas that she's particularly interested in, has a passion about in her case plan or case notes, and things like being outgoing and a bubbly personality. She really wants to play lawn bowls, which is a particular strength, and into music. So there's a lot of strengths there in Jordan. So we're not really focusing on the things that she can't do and her perhaps challenges, which is identified as having anxiety as well as the mild learning disability. However, in amongst all that, there's a lot of strengths, and I guess working with those strengths and talking to Jordan as an equal in a sense is also that person-centered approach. So looking at the marking criteria a little bit further, it talks about collaboration. So that's the idea of working with Jordan, but it's also about working away to get feedback, working how to get feedback with Jordan and working out how things might be going. And that could be collaborating with her wherever she's doing the activities and the supervisors there. And I would suggest that putting in a support worker might be something that you discuss with Jordan, particularly when she maybe identifies as anxiety as a barrier to get into new groups and feel comfortable. So there's some of the things that could come up, but I do encourage you to have a look at the marking guide and so you get a sense of what you're being assessed on in this role play when you get to do it. So just drawing back to how we started this session with the exploring situations where you could find yourself as a support worker where you're a little bit out of your area of expertise or knowledge and you need extra support. There are 2 short answer questions that you need to do following the role play, which explores those concepts. So firstly, it's saying, question 1, part A there, what a situation you could find yourself in where you're gone beyond your experience or knowledge. And I guess some of those role plays, we looked at things from learning a musical instrument, whether it be a ukulele or a guitar, to taking someone into the ocean or swimming lessons,
to helping someone or supporting someone explore their sexual experiences or sexuality. So all of those are examples, and there could be many more that you can think of, whether we explore them in the role plays or not. And then part B is where do you get that extra support and who do you ask? I guess in the first instance, it's experienced colleagues and supervisors, certainly. We did mention, for example, in the exploration of supporting someone with their sexual life, sexuality. It could be places like family planning to get that good support, good information, and perhaps somewhere like ACON as well, particularly if the person is exploring a same-sex or similar type of relationship. So that's referring to Jordan's case specifically. So yeah, I'll let you explore and come up with the answers there. The little bit of info that we do get about Jordan prior to doing the role play is that she's a bubbly 40-year-old woman, good laugh. She lives at home with mum Cheryl and dad Kevin, moderate to intellectual learning disability for Jordan, and she has experienced some episodes of anxiety throughout her life. And so that's the sort of stuff that could be discussed in the role play without a doubt. Other bits of information that we do get about Jordan are some of her strengths, talents, and likes and dislikes there on this information of part of her plan. She doesn't like being babied or colouring in, but she does like dancing, music, and lawn bowls. And I believe that she'd really like to play competition lawn bowls at some point. She can catch public transport, perhaps like buses, but perhaps there are limitations around that. That could be explored in the role play as well, so just be mindful of that. And what's important to note is that you'll complete these goals at the completion of the role play as well. So you'll notice those 3 goals up the top of this slide. So I'll talk about identifying the goal, and that could be something like learning to play lawn bowls at the local lawn bowling club, or it could be about playing competition lawn bowls at the lawn bowling club. The barrier and issue could be something like maybe Jordan's anxiety, perhaps transport might be spoken about. The strategies for community participation. So is that about, doing some training on the travel route, if that's a barrier? If the anxiety is a big barrier, then it's having the support worker, certainly in the initial stages, to make contact and help Jordan build a rapport. The review date and feedback is sort of something that's often spoken about in the marking criteria of the role play, in the sense of how do we know if things are working for Jordan in this activity. So the sort of strategies could be talking to Jordan after she's done the activity. It might be getting feedback from the support worker, if there's a support worker attending, perhaps the people that are doing the activity or running the activity. Maybe there's some feedback there. Discussing all that up front with Jordan would be important. Say, Jordan, we're going to, have a little chat and see how things are going, and we'll have a bit of review and make sure that you're still enjoying it. So the idea of a review date, maybe that could be straight after the activities. There could be a more formal review after a month or something like that. So you can decide, and that feedback column is there. How will that feedback be, attained? Is that verbally in the first instance, or is it in other means? Here's an example, or this is the progress note form that you will complete after also interviewing Jordan. So there's a little bit of paperwork that you'll do. There's 2 short answer questions relating to the things that are outside your comfort zone. There's that planning document, particularly looking at the 3 big major goals that will be, put in place with Jordan's help. But there's also a little progress note or a case note. So often used interchangeably, case note or progress note, but that'll be written, straight after the role play. And it's just that little, the date, the time, you sign it, but it's also just that quick outline or simple outline of exactly what happened, what was spoken about, and what will progress or how it will be progressed, what you'll do, and that's that record of that. And that's really important, as we've spoken about in the past. If you have to be away for any reason and someone else starts working with Jordan, so they can pick up your progress note and have a look and say, okay, this is where we're up to with Jordan, this is what's been spoken about, and this is what's happening. And so they're up to good speed if there's a handover for any reason. So I'm just going to take a little bit of time to look at the knowledge questions. So that's part one, if you like, or the short answer questions. So a lot of the information can be found in the handout that's drawn from this really good manual from Aspire, the Support Community Participation and Social Inclusion Manual. So the first question, I think there was a table. And what's really the crux of the table is looking at understanding the strengths-based practice or strength-based approach. And as I sort of spoke about earlier, looking at Jordan in particular, there are a lot of things that Jordan can do. We're not focusing on her challenges and disability. It's like she can catch a bus, she is friendly, she has an infectious laugh, she wants to play lawn bowls and get out there and meet people. And similar, this person-centered approach is also going to be important information for that table, but that's working with Jordan or whoever you're working with and sharing power, sharing knowledge and working together to get to where the person wants. So it's really listening and working with that person and listening to their story, working where it is they want to go, what's out there and where can we fit them, not just trying to fit them into the most easiest spot and saying that'll be good enough. It's really listening to the person. That's what the table looks like. There's a principle, which I've just sort of spoken about, the two main principles, and giving an example. So you could draw on Jordan or perhaps our first case study, Milo, for examples, if need be. If you look down at question 2, it's talking about examples or 3 examples of best practice principles that facilitate and promote community participation and social inclusion. And what I have been saying to people is that whole reading from the Aspire manual, everything within that is about best practice to include people. So whether it is that strengths-based or person-centered approach, or it is about working with networks, looking at the networks within the person's life, looking at the networks within the community. Is it about keeping really good written and verbal communication going? So the planning, having a good plan, we'll see that with after Jordan, you've got to do the plan, but we're looking at, what are the strengths, but also the challenges. How do we get around that and how to review that? All of those, I would argue, are part of best practice in working with people, working within the people and with people and in the community. Question 3 looks particularly at the idea of active citizenship and how active citizenship supports community participation and social inclusion for people with a disability. If we go right back to where we started with this unit, we looked at what makes a full life. And so all those things that people came up with, whether it was employment, recreation, family, having hobbies, eating out, just being an active member of the community is all part of active citizenship. But the part that is really encompassed in that term, active citizenship, is having some political influence as well, or being able to, having the capacity to participate politically. And what that means can be as simple as if someone's using a wheelchair and they cannot get access because of, let's say, there's a lip on a gutter or something that makes it impractical to navigate without falling out, or it's unsafe. How do you communicate that, or who do you communicate that to bring about change? So that could be local government in terms of footpaths and access in most cases. So how does someone have the skills or the capacity to make, ring up or get on the internet or even go into their local council and say, having this issue and putting their case forward and looking about feeding into things like the disability inclusion plans, which was come up as well. So they're a council document. So that's all about active citizenship, having that capacity to participate politically, and politically can be about having your voice heard about things that matter or things that make life better, and whether that's at the local government level or the state government level or the federal level. As long as people know how they can do that, and they can do that, that's one of the main tenets or main aspects of being an active citizen. Question 4 looks at two examples of both physical and skill barriers to community participation and social inclusion that may be experienced by people with a disability. So if we look at examples of the physical inclusion or barriers around being included because of a physical nature of a barrier, we could refer to Milo perhaps. Milo's using a wheelchair, and that might mean access to buildings. If he was pursuing yoga, for example, and couldn't get access, is it about access to beaches in Milo's case? Do the beaches have the matting or the adaptive wheelchairs to get access down to the beach to participate in the surfing events? They could be both physical type barriers. If we look at the skill barriers to community participation, I guess we can look at a few examples here. Again, Milo, and if he's wanting to go surfing, get back into surf after being 5 years out and then having an injury that will change, I guess, his confidence and ability in the surf. There'd be a new set of skills and perhaps some still water training or hydrotherapy that may need to take place first to overcome perhaps some skill barriers, or at least those skill barriers need to be assessed to make sure that it's not dangerous. Skill barriers, again, we looked at employable me and we saw some people, we saw Kaya with Tourette's, and I guess a skill in terms of that Tourette's, whether he could be an interpreter in mainstream, if his Tourette's kicked in and there was swearing, that might be awkward in some, I guess, situations out in public, for example, interpreting for a politician or for the media on the news, that may get in the way as a skill level. We also had a look at the young woman with dwarfism, and she spoke about the skill barrier, perhaps doing certain physical jobs like a police officer or in the fire service, where it's quite physically and demanding. That may be something on a skill level that she would not be able to do. Question 5 looks at explaining the role carers and or family or relevant others might play in supporting a person with a disability. And again, an important consideration in your working with people is what are the supports that close people within a family sphere can provide? Is it things like transport? Is it emotional support? Is it sharing knowledge if they're studying perhaps, or being like a tutor in helping in that role? There could be a whole range of areas that extended family or network of friends that could be useful and really supportive for a person with a disability. And I think that's outlined in the reading from Aspire quite well. And it's about remembering that when you're looking at those networks and strengths and supports when you're working with people and devising their plan. And the key to that is you're devising the plan with them, not for them. But it is about listening to them and looking at those strengths within their satellite networks. Question 6 is about an information table about different services. You'll get to see the format for that in a second, and that's a separate document I can attach as well. But looking at different services out there that specialise in working with people with disability, whether it be generalist services, places like connectability come to mind. It could be specific services that look at advocacy. So Disability New South Wales would be an advocacy service. There could be services like local government that are important to identify. It could be transport services that like community transport. So they're asking for a bit of a snapshot or a bit of a range of 5 different services. So the table asks for the name of the services provided, contact details, and a little bit of further information. I think earlier on we looked at the Disability Surfers Association Australia as an example in the sporting sphere. I think there's also Wheelchair Sports Australia that you could look at, but yeah, try to get a cross section of different services would be a good idea. So somewhere like Maywell up at Maitland, they do provide a real vast range of different services. They do provide a service looking at the business type service, or used to be like the sheltered employment, but that's around publishing and shredding services as an example. It could be the open employment services provided by Castle personnel, so supporting people to get a job in the open employment market. So there are a couple of other examples to consider. Okay, where are we up to now? Question 7. I'll just have a quick look at that. So it's saying refer to the information from your table and all those different services, and it's saying provide 3 examples of strategies that could be used to strengthen the networks and contacts for continued working relationships. So I guess from that perspective of being a worker in the disability sphere, disability services, how do you make good connections? So there are things that we may have spoken about in class, but I'll mention here, things like interagency meetings. So that's where agencies all come together and share their knowledge, their training, their expertise, things that are going on. So you could be attending an interagency meeting on behalf of your service or even as an individual, and you share your knowledge and expertise in that forum. Just getting on the phone and talking to different services, asking, what do they do, referring people to those services, whether that's over the phone or via email. There's good ways of strengthening services, perhaps working on a community initiative, something where a bunch of services come together and promote awareness. That could be around a specific disability event like an art exhibition, for example. I've seen those sorts of things happen in the past. Certain big community days or awareness raising days. I think I've seen, well, the biggest one I know of is Homeless Connect. I know not disability specific, but disability services are certainly represented there, and that's a really big networking opportunity in our region. So there's a few little examples, and I'll let you read a little bit from the Aspire book as well to maybe come up with some more. But the Aspire does have some good examples around networking, and I think I've covered a few of the basic and good ones there. So we started today looking at those charades and various things like that, and that was about looking for ways to navigate things that might be out of our comfort zone and the networks that we need there. So that was very good. Apologies if not everyone got their little skit included. However, you can see there's a little bit going on there that wasn't included, but that's it for me. And I'll just finish off with these final words of wisdom that I did discover in my recording. And I'll put this down to someone using their initiative and strengths. Toodle pips.
Hey, Anthony, you cock forward.